Hello, I'm Julia Kelly, an astrologer and an intuitive. And if you're watching this video, you're probably wondering what is going on with the 2024 eclipse season that we have from March to April in Aries and Libra. And you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this eclipse season, including horoscopes for each zodiac sign. And if you've been here before, welcome back. And for anyone new here, welcome as well. And for everyone, if you're wondering why everything in your life is suddenly changing, like your job, your relationship, where you live, or you're staring into the abyss and asking existential questions, don't worry, you're not crazy. It's just eclipse season. Everything's fine. I'm just kidding, but some people may feel that way right now. This eclipse season is pretty impactful, and a lot of people may feel that, especially if you're an Aries or a Libra placement or a cardinal placement, Capricorn or Cancer. And this is also an important eclipse season for Pisces placements. And I'm going to tell you why that is. But for all placements, we are in eclipse season, which happens multiple times a year. And whenever we have an eclipse season, this represents major change that is coming through or something that is coming to the surface so that it can be addressed, looked at, or transformed. And there may be a lot of that transformation and looking at things in this eclipse season specifically, and I'll talk about why that is. And before we dive in, I want to share that I currently have a limited offer for eclipse season readings, which is at a very discounted price. And if you're interested in that, you can go onto my website. And again, this is a limited time offer with limited availability as well, just through eclipse season. So let's start with the basics. Eclipse season is marked by two lunar events. So this eclipse season will start on March 25th with a penumbral lunar eclipse in Libra, and it will end on April 8th with a total solar eclipse in Aries. And fun fact for that solar eclipse, if you are in America, you will be able to see that eclipse in some areas. So from March 25th with that lunar eclipse in Libra to April 8th with the solar eclipse in Aries, this is what is known as our eclipse season. Now, some eclipse seasons start with a lunar eclipse and other eclipse seasons start with a solar eclipse, but it's always going to be balanced by the opposite. So we're starting this eclipse season with a lunar eclipse, a full moon, and we're ending it with a solar eclipse, which is a new moon. And yes, there is some significance to that, which I'll talk about. I'm going to talk about the themes of this eclipse season and the meaning that might be behind it. And I want to first start by pointing out some other important dates to know that may help you to trace back to how this eclipse season may show up in your life in connection with the eclipses that we had at the end of last year and what you should know about the later eclipse season that we have in the end of this year. And furthermore, how this eclipse season can also reflect time periods that go back 10 years and even further than that. So starting off, this eclipse season is going to reflect the eclipse season that we had from October 14th to October 28th in 2023. That eclipse season had a solar eclipse in Libra on October 14th, and it concluded with a lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th. That eclipse season closed out the Taurus and Scorpio eclipses that we had, and it opened or continued to open the Libra and Aries eclipses that we began to have last year. That said, this eclipse season is going to be our first eclipse season in a while with Aries and Libra for both of these eclipses. So again, this is significant, especially for Aries and Libra placements, cardinal placements, but it's also just significant in general for wherever Aries and Libra are in your natal chart. And that's what you can look at the horoscopes for. And what this means is that you can look back at something that may have occurred in your life in October of last year or around that time and understand how it may show up in your life right now or what may have happened at that time, whether you closed a door on something or opened a door to something, to see what may come up right now in your life with this eclipse season or to see what may feel complete by the time we are done with this eclipse season. And I like to say with eclipse seasons, sometimes there can be very major events that have been under the surface for a while and finally bubble up. And other times the changes that happen are very subtle and you may not know that something has really shifted until you're looking back at a period of time that has already happened. That said, because this is an Aries and Libra, there may be some more obvious events, especially around that total solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th. And thinking about the connection of this eclipse season to the eclipses that we will have later this year, our second eclipse season this year will start on September 17th and it will go until October 2nd. And that will also involve an eclipse in Libra, which will be a solar eclipse on October 2nd. But it's also going to have a lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is going to then open up the Pisces and Virgo eclipses that we will see more in 2025. So although we don't have to think too much about those Pisces and Virgo eclipses that we will see in 2025, there is going to be a hint of that later this year. And this eclipse season is also significant for Pisces placements or wherever Pisces is at in your chart. And that's because the planets that rule both of these eclipses will be in Pisces. For our first eclipse on March 25th in Libra, this will be ruled by Venus in Pisces. And the second eclipse, the total solar eclipse in Aries, that's going to be ruled by Mars in Pisces. So I'm going to talk about what that means. And before that, I also want to point out the significance of the eclipse cycles in general and what you can look back to at earlier times of your life to understand how or why some things may be coming up again. So it takes about 19 years for the nodes to get back to where they are, which means that we have full eclipse cycles that last about 19 years. So about 19 years ago, we had the North Node in Aries, where it is at right now, and the South Node in Libra. So the nodes are currently in Aries and Libra. The North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. And they haven't been in this position since 2005 and 2006. That said, about every 10 years, we have an opposite nodal experience, which means that the South Node is in the opposite sign to where it is right now, and the North Node is in the opposite sign as well. So 10 years ago, in 2014 to 2015, we experienced the eclipses in Aries and Libra as well, but the North Node was in Libra and the South Node was in Aries, which is opposite to where they are at right now. And I point that out just to say that when we're thinking about these major cycles, you can look back to 2014, 2015, and even prior to that, 2005 and 2006, to see how something may be resurfacing, coming to completion, or you may just be thinking about that time of your life, perhaps even in a major way right now. And because of that, eclipse season is always a good time to just take inventory of where you're at in a cycle of your life or what is coming to the surface. Because even when something feels like it's in the past or it doesn't make sense why it's showing up in the present, sometimes things are surfacing so that we can fully process them or fully complete them in alignment with the cosmic energies. So I'm now going to talk about the significance of these specific eclipses that we have on March 25th and on April 8th, and what this eclipse season may mean in general, and then I'll get into the specifics for each zodiac sign. So again, one of the interesting things about this eclipse season is that Pisces is going to play a large role in this eclipse season because both of the planets that rule each eclipse will be in Pisces. So we start this eclipse season off with the lunar eclipse in Libra, which means that the sun is in Aries and the moon is in Libra. So the moon will be conjunct the South Node in Libra and the sun will be near the North Node in Aries. And that Libra lunar eclipse will be ruled by Venus in Pisces. Now this is interesting because Venus is exalted in Pisces, which means it loves to be there. But it can also mean that there can be an excess of information, of emotion, of energy coming out or coming up or being put into something. One of the other interesting things about this eclipse season is that Saturn is also going to be in the mix in the sense that it will be conjunct the planets in Pisces as well. So there's an influence of Saturn in Pisces, and there's also an influence of Pisces in general over these eclipses. And when we're thinking about what that means, so Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, the first fire sign of the zodiac, and it's known to be the youngest sign of the zodiac. And on the other hand, we have Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac, known to be the oldest sign as well. So we're in between this space of life and death, of age and wisdom and youth and curiosity. There's a lot of different dynamics we can look at between Pisces and Aries itself, or the beginning and the end. And of course, it doesn't always look to be so black and white, but when we're thinking about this eclipse season, things can show up in that kind of paradox or contrast, where something is ending and something is beginning. And I think we'll see a lot of that through this eclipse season, where you may notice that there is a stark difference between an area of your life or between two different parts of your life. That said, looking again at this lunar eclipse that we have in Libra, because this is going to be ruled by Venus, in exalted Venus in Pisces, there may be an excess of emotion, an excess of information, a busyness going on. There may just be a sense that something is coming to the surface and it's not sitting alone. There may be an event that surfaces that's not connected to one thing, but it's connected to 10 things, or something that shows up in the present that actually has more to do with the past. And I wanted to point this out because, again, when we're looking at this eclipse season, we're starting with a lunar eclipse, a full moon, which is about completion. And then we're ending this eclipse season with a solar eclipse in a fire sign in Aries, which is about beginning, and it's a total eclipse. So when we're thinking about this holistic view of this eclipse season, we're starting with something that feels more like an ending, and we're ending with something that feels more like a beginning. So thinking about this lunar eclipse that we have, there may be some emphasis on closing something out in your life, or noticing when something has ended, when something is over, when something feels stagnant. In fact, one of the dynamics that I'm seeing in this eclipse season as well is the difference between stuck energy and moving energy. I'll talk about that importance when we're looking at that Aries eclipse. But in general, there may be a vision or visual that can be helpful to see how any area of your life that feels stuck right now is likely what this lunar eclipse is going to bring to the surface. So you can see where you might be holding on to something or feeling stuck in an area of your life or in an emotion, perhaps not being able to fully process or feel an emotion until it surfaces. And then as that leads into this Aries eclipse, then we're looking at things being more in movement, being more in motion. And I point that out just so you know that if we start this eclipse season and things feel a bit heavy, they feel a bit stuck, or they feel maybe obscured in some way, have faith that that Aries eclipse is going to move that energy. In fact, a great way to work with this eclipse season is to really tap into that lunar eclipse in Libra and use it as an opportunity to release. And because we are in between that eclipse season from March 25th to April 8th, in between that time is a really great time to release, to let go, to use any opportunity that you can to really move energy in your life, or allow something to move on or out of your life. And if you're wondering what it is that you should be releasing or letting go, it's likely that it's going to surface on its own or become a bit more obvious as we move through eclipse season. But a good indicator as well is to look at or feel into what area of your life feels stuck. One of the themes that I'm seeing for this eclipse season, especially as we're starting this off, is noticing what is lingering in your life. What is lingering around you? What is stuck in your energy, in your aura, relationships, ideas, identities, beliefs, anything that you're holding on to or that's just lingering. I was thinking about that song, Linger by the Cranberries. You know, do you have to let it linger? You know I'm such a fool for you. Yeah, that song. I see that really being a theme for starting this eclipse season and noticing what is lingering. And this may be something coming into your awareness that's been around you, but you haven't been seeing it as it is. For instance, there may be a feeling of stuck emotions in your life or holding on to something that you didn't even know you were holding on to. This could be something that has happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago or a year ago or 3 months ago. But this can also be something that's just surfacing in your life in a more obvious way right now so that you can see that you're holding on to it. And again, a lot of this may be connected to multiple things. For instance, an emotion that's coming up that feels like it's connected to a present situation, but that actually has roots that go back 10 years, 19 years to your birth. And of course, a lot of that can feel a bit heavy at times, but that's why, again, I really invite you to lean into the movement and the energy that this eclipse season will be bringing as we move from that lunar eclipse in Libra to that solar eclipse in Aries. So now looking at that Aries eclipse that we have on April 8th, this is a pretty gnarly eclipse. You may have heard about this already, or you may be hearing about this from other astrologers or just people on the streets. But this is a pretty wild eclipse, and this is for a lot of reasons. For starters, it's a total solar eclipse, which doesn't happen all the time. And it's also going to be in Aries, a fire sign, the first sign of the zodiac, and it's ruled by Mars. Furthermore, it has the North Node connected to it, which is directing us to the energy, if we didn't need any more emphasis on it. And it's also going to be conjunct Chiron in the exact degree. And that's what actually makes this eclipse stand out a lot, is that we are having a total solar eclipse in the exact same degree as Chiron. Now, Chiron is an asteroid which is known as the wounded healer, and Chiron has a lot of different associations and lore with it, but essentially it's connected to our wounds and also how we heal. What I want to say about this eclipse, this total solar eclipse in Aries, which is conjunct Chiron, is that Chiron has been hanging out in Aries for a while. So it's not like Chiron just walked into Aries overnight. It's slow moving and it has been in Aries for a bit. So what this means is that whatever Chiron has already begun to move in your life is not going to be a total surprise, but it is going to be present. And what I mean by that is that when we're thinking about a solar eclipse, we are fully in the light. We are seeing things at their full luminosity. And whenever we have planets that come too close to the sun, they actually get burnt out in astrology, which means that they may not be as strong in comparison with the sun. At the same time, when we're looking at the meaning in astrology, there's also a sense of bringing things to the light or seeing things more clearly. So the significance of Chiron being in Aries isn't going to be much of a surprise to anyone, because Chiron has been in Aries in your chart for some time. But the fact that it is now going to be illuminated with this total solar eclipse, whatever that Chiron representation is for you, is going to be present and it's going to be witnessed. A way to look at this is just noticing that sometimes we have wounds that might be very painful, so we don't want to look at them, or we create a lot of avoidance around certain wounds or areas of our life that we would benefit from healing. And this eclipse season is going to confront that healing head on. And to confront the healing means you have to first confront the wound. Some of you may know that quote by Rumi, which is, "The wound is the place where the light enters." That is a great summary of this total solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th. The best advice I can give for that eclipse is to face the wound. If you find yourself trying to run away from a situation in your life or from an area of your life that needs some attention or healing, this eclipse season is going to direct you to that. Again, this total solar eclipse in Aries is complemented by that North Node, which is directing us to it. It's pointing the arrow at it. It's pointing a mirror up to it. It's shining the light on it. So if there's something that comes up around this time and anytime through this eclipse season, if you run from it, it may just become more obvious. It may start to show up in all areas of your life. But if you face it, you may find that there's a beautiful synchronicity that occurs in working with the energy of healing. And when we're thinking about this idea of healing something, what I want to just add on top of that is to say that sometimes facing something is the healing. Just looking at it, acknowledging it, saying it, witnessing it, and allowing it to be what it is. There's a lot of great tools and resources and ideas for changing and healing and all the stuff, but often just looking in the direction of something that you've been avoiding or facing something head on is the catalyst to change. It allows the transcendence or the transformation to occur just by facing it. That said, the overall message and the final note that I want to share on this eclipse season is that change is at the center of it. Change is something that we experience with all eclipse seasons. It's kind of the theme of eclipse season in general, is that things are changing. But especially with this eclipse season, we are driven toward action. Sometimes we can wait on something to change, wait for time to pass, or be passive towards something in life. And sometimes that does allow change to occur, or there can be a surrender that happens within that. But this eclipse season is leading us from that full moon lunar eclipse to a new moon solar eclipse. And that solar eclipse being in Aries is really pointing to taking action in the right areas of your life. And a way that you may see this show up again is noticing that with the start of this eclipse season, there may be something in your life that you just start to feel tired of. Maybe there's a stagnancy, a stuck energy, you're waiting for something to change outside of you. And by the time we get to the end of this eclipse season, with that solar eclipse in Aries, you may notice that activation of energy, movement of energy, and taking action is going to be the remedy for moving any energy or a feeling of stagnancy in your life. The key with taking action during this eclipse season, though, is to balance it with discernment, to balance it with taking a step back and getting a clear picture before moving forward. And for a lot of people, that may be the opportunity that's presented at the beginning of this eclipse season with the lunar eclipse. And then as we move to that Aries eclipse, there may be something that becomes more evident that you want to take action on. But taking action in a reckless way or doing something without a clear idea of why you're doing it may not have the results that you're looking for, which is again why starting this eclipse season off with that Libra lunar eclipse can be very reflective for a lot of people, and working with that energy can be very beneficial. And finally, to top this eclipse season off, if it wasn't crazy enough, we also have a Mercury retrograde that's going to occur right in the middle of eclipse season. And it's going to be in Aries. So again, what that means is that this eclipse season is likely just going to come with a lot of energy and action and things happening. And for some people, it may feel a bit busy or overwhelming, but allowing the energy of the eclipse season to occur or working with it can be helpful for understanding the areas of your life that you cannot control and that you can step away from or surrender to, versus the areas of your life that you can take action to change. And knowing the difference between those two things can be very important and helpful for navigating this eclipse season. And to close that out, some of you may be familiar with the Serenity Prayer, which is God or higher power, universe, divine being, anything you want to place in there. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is like fully encompassing this eclipse season. How can we accept the things we cannot change with that lunar eclipse in Libra, and change the things we can with courage with that solar eclipse in Aries? And how can we tap into the wisdom between all of it to know the difference between those two, which is where we have Saturn in Pisces and then Mars in Pisces and Venus in Pisces ruling those eclipses. And again, with eclipse season, there's never anything to fear, but fear is a part of life, and it may show up more evidentially during eclipse seasons. Fear may be showing up in the corner of the room, in the back seat of your car, at your neighbor's house, at your friend's house, on your phone. Fear is there. And avoiding fear is likely going to magnify it at this time, but facing it directly, understanding it, can be very helpful for transitioning through this eclipse season. And again, that is really the overall theme that I'm seeing with this eclipse season, is that avoiding anything in your life is likely going to bring it closer to you. But if you can face it head on, you might see that there's an action step that you can take to move beyond a situation that has been in your life or been within you, perhaps going back 10 years, even 19 years. So there's always an opportunity to shift a pattern when we have eclipse seasons, and this eclipse season specifically is offering that opportunity. So I will leave you all with that, and now I'm going to dive into the individual horoscopes for each zodiac sign. Aries placements. So as you might imagine, this eclipse season has a lot to do with you. You've probably heard by now that the North Node is in your sign, and this total solar eclipse that we have on April 8th is going to really bring a light to what that means for you. Some of you may be flirting with what this has meant in your life since last year, since around July of 2023. You may be noticing that there's been something that shifted in your life. It could be very obvious. It could be internal as well, but you've likely noticed that this has been a major time of your life. And this solar eclipse is going to really show you what that means, and perhaps even allowing you to plant seeds for a longer period of your life. There may be a sense of making a commitment or thinking about what a commitment may mean to you at this time. And this has a lot to do with the fact that we have the South Node in your 7th house of relationships. when we're thinking about this whole eclipse season for you, Aries, this has a lot to do with the dynamic of relationships and the individual being you and the relationships being everyone else in your life. But especially for you Aries placements, this may be significant when it comes to a specific relationship in your life, such as a partner, a partnership, someone you might be dating. But this can also just represent what relationships mean to you in general, how you show up in them, whether this is friendship dynamics, family dynamics, work dynamics. This can have a lot to do as well with your relationship to freedom and your relationship to authority. If you're noticing right now that something is threatening your freedom, you may find that within this eclipse season, it's asking you to look at what that is and why it might feel threatening. For instance, you might have an opportunity to make a commitment of some sort, or you might be in a new commitment of some sort, a marriage, a long-term partnership, a job, moving somewhere, buying a home, something of that nature. And there may be a part of you that is excited about this, seeing the opportunity within it. Perhaps it's something that you've even wanted for a long time, but there's another side of you that might be feeling very threatened by that commitment. And the best way that I could paint this for you, Aries placements, is to just understand the importance of maintaining your sense of self no matter what's going on around you or what you may connect to. Whenever we have a relationship or a commitment in our life, it's a sense of merging with something else or with someone else. But there's also the importance of knowing the difference between you and someone else and having the correct boundaries or the appropriate space between those two things. In a healthy relationship, there are boundaries. There is a difference between you and the other. So even if you love someone and you're committed to someone, it's always going to be important to still have a sense of who you are, especially as an Aries placement. And so with this eclipse season, this may be what you're really looking at or understanding in a deeper way, is how to maintain your sense of self while still allowing yourself to commit to the people or the things in your life that you value and that are important and significant to you. A lot of you Aries placements may be having a major moment in your life where you get to really be in the spotlight in some way, whether this is in a small circle, a community, in a bigger, more public way, whatever it is. It may even just be that you are building a better relationship with yourself, where you're seeing parts of yourself in a new light, or you're celebrating parts of yourself. And this is a great opportunity with this eclipse season to really bring that to the surface, especially if there's anything in your life or within yourself that you felt insecure about. Again, a major component of this eclipse season is that we have Chiron in Aries, which is going to be fully illuminated by the solar eclipse. So Chiron has been in your sign for a while. So a lot of you may be noticing that this is now just becoming more obvious, or you may be becoming more intimate with an area of your life or with a part of yourself that you perhaps have felt insecure about or that you haven't addressed head on. An example of this is having an emotion that comes up in intimacy with others, or in direct relationships, or even in friendships or any dynamic. And this emotion may be something that you don't really want to feel, or you don't really want to face, or you've built coping mechanisms around feeling this emotion. And this eclipse season may bring this emotion up in a greater way. If it's been on a 5, it may turn it up to a 10. And that's nothing to fear, but it's just to know that if something feels like it's a bit more obvious and evident within you or around you, it's probably because this is the catalyst to face. This is something to look at. Another example of this may be that you're having an opportunity in your life to move forward with something, to commit to something, to take a greater stand on something, or to own your authenticity in a greater way. And there may be an insecurity that is forming a wall between you and that opportunity, or you and the direction that you want to go in. So that insecurity wants to be faced. It wants to be looked at. If there's some part of yourself that you don't feel quite comfortable with, there may be a more obvious awareness of that part of yourself or that insecurity, not so that you run in the other direction or think that it's meant to stop you from moving forward, but rather so that you can face it, so that you can actually overcome it or even integrate it, so that you can take a step forward in some area of your life. And lastly, with all of the energy in Pisces hanging out behind Aries, especially with Saturn there, there's also a sense for Aries placements of really listening to your intuition at this time. There may be some things in your life that are subtle whispers. They may not be as loud or obvious in some ways, but you may notice them in very subtle ways. It can be a feeling in your body, a dream that you have. It can be something that you just feel within yourself, but you may not have the words for, or it may not make logical sense. And I share this not to go into any rabbit holes with something, because there can also be an element of not overthinking at this time, but rather just to pay attention to what is the difference between fear and intuition. And when your intuition is communicating with you, how can you make space for it? How can you listen to it? How can you honor it, even if it contradicts what other people might be saying or something else in your life? If you've had something in your life that has been a main focus for you, but there's an intuition saying it's time to look in a different direction, this eclipse season is going to help you to hear that intuition in a better or more clear way. Thank you for watching, Aries, and I'm wishing you a great transformational eclipse season. Hang in there, and if you need to feel your emotions or cry or scream or all of the above, definitely do it. Thanks for watching. Taurus placements. So this eclipse season is finally out of your sign, so that's a big relief. Taurus placements, you've been dealing with the eclipses for the last year and a half, but this eclipse season is now fully in Aries and Libra, which might actually feel like a reprieve or a relief for a lot of you. Now, this is in a more subtle area of your chart now to Taurus, which means that the North Node and that solar eclipse that we have on April 8th is going to be in your 12th house, and the lunar eclipse that we have on March 25th in Libra is in your 6th house. This area of your chart deals a lot with the things that are unseen. It deals with the body, with your health, with the small details of life, and it can also deal with the subconscious, with your psychology, with the psyche, with dreaming, with the way you might be thinking about something. And because of that, this eclipse season may bring things to the surface that have been very subtle that may require more of your attention now. This can be a dynamic in a relationship that you're ready to shift or allow space in between you and someone else. This may be an opportunity to have clear communication about something with someone. And at the same time, a lot of you may be noticing that things are just changing in your work environment, in your friendships, and specifically in your social circles. There may be a sense of something coming to an end, perhaps a friendship that has been very meaningful to you, that you have known someone for a long time, or they've been a very important person in your life, or perhaps you've even grown up with them, or you may even be in a relationship with them. There may be a sense of really letting a relationship evolve or end. Sometimes we grow apart from people, and that is just a part of life, and there can be grief with that. There can be a feeling of loss with that, but there can also be a sense of allowance and surrender and freedom that can come with accepting that a phase of a relationship has ended. And so a lot of you Taurus placements may be noticing that with this eclipse season. And this has a lot to do with where Pisces is at in your chart, with Saturn there, and then with Mars and Venus ruling these eclipses. They're really pointing to your social circles, to your friendships, and also to your idea of the future, to your vision of where you want to be in 2 years from now and 10 years from now, and also getting an idea of what the past experiences that you've had, how those have led you to where you are now. There may be a sense of closing a major chapter in your life and allowing a new chapter to open. When we're thinking about that kind of change, a lot of times what comes with it is allowing the unknown to be unknown. When we get used to certain people in our life, certain dynamics, certain routines, consistency, dependencies on things, it can be easy to stay in those comfort zones because they provide a sense of security or reliance. But when we go through periods of our life where those areas of life are meant to be released, that can be a little bit scary because we don't know what's coming around the corner. We don't know who's going to be in our life if we make more space in our friendships. We don't know what kind of job's going to show up if we let go of a job that we've been in and that we've grown out of. And so a lot of you Taurus placements may just be looking at your relationship with the unknown, with not having something be so clear or determined or predictable or consistent. And luckily, because of the nature of this eclipse season, a lot of you may feel that you're riding that wave and you're enjoying it. You may be ready for change in your life. And in fact, for those of you who resonate with that, this is a great time to just really work with that and lean into it. Lean into the change. If there's anything in your life that you've kind of let go of like 90%, but you're just hanging on to it by its thread, this is the time to let go of that last percentage of something, the last thread of something. If you're hanging on to anything as tight as you can, but most of it has already been released, this eclipse season is going to give you a gentle nudge to just let go fully. And what might come to the surface with that is seeing that what you thought would happen if you let go may not be what actually happens. For instance, if you have had fears about something happening, if you let go of something else, you may find that in letting go, a whole new reality unfolds that may be way beyond what you had expected or what you feared. And as a final note for you, Taurus placements, a lot of you are likely going through big career changes, chapters in your career, and it may not be as obvious or evident right now. For instance, you may be staying in a job that you've been in or continuing to grow in an area or a field that you're working in, but there may be a sense of just making a change in a corner of your life that is going to have more of an impact later on. Or you may even make a very small change to something you're doing and it may have a pretty large impact on your life. For instance, you may change your routine at work, you may change your work schedule, you may change your work environment, you may move somewhere and have the same kind of job but in a totally different location. And there may be some small change or non-obvious change that actually has a great ripple effect in your life. A lot of you may also be starting to feel more confident in the work that you're doing, and by the end of this eclipse season, you may feel confident to take a step in a direction that perhaps allows a little bit more autonomy or freedom in expressing yourself in the work that you do. All right, thank you, Taurus placements. I hope you have a great eclipse season, and thanks for watching. Gemini placements, welcome to this eclipse season. A lot of you Gemini placements may be noticing that there's some major changes going on in the areas of your career and your creativity at this time. And simultaneously, you may also be noticing changes in your relationships or the level of maturity that you have when you're approaching situations in your life. The South Node is currently in your 5th house to Gemini, and the North Node is in your 11th house. This means that lunar eclipse on March 25th will be in the 5th house to Gemini, and the solar eclipse on April 8th will be in the 11th house. This axis of energy has a lot to do with expression and validation, or the creation that you have in something and then how you put it out to the world, how you share it, and who you share it with as well. There's a sense of finding a validation within yourself during this eclipse cycle, even starting again back last year and going into the end of this year, but really finding a sense of validation or fulfillment through the creative process itself. Some of you may be feeling more accomplished in your career. You may be feeling like you've reached a point of authority, or you have somewhat of a reputation in something that you're doing, or you may just feel again that the work you're doing makes you proud, that you feel proud of what you're doing, or you feel accomplished with some service that you're offering, or something that you're exploring allows you to really see the fruits of your labor. And this may be very obvious by that solar eclipse that we have in Aries on April 8th, because this is happening near the top of your chart in an area that does deal with reputation and how things pay off, and something that may also be kind of public. A lot of you Gemini placements may be feeling that you're finally getting seen for an area of your life that's very valuable to you, or for a part of yourself that you've been expressing or wanting to express. Some of you may have opportunities to really step into something that allows you to be more authentic in how you express, or allows you to be more honest in how you're communicating about things that you care about. That said, with that South Node also in your 5th house, there's a sense of releasing something that you've outgrown. And the word maturity is really sticking out with you Gemini placements with this. There may be an area of your life that You've just outgrown the skills you were using, the way you felt about something, the ambitions you had about something, or the desires and the reliances that you've had towards someone, toward a group of people, or toward an idea of yourself or what you want to be doing. For instance, let's say that you are passionate about something like art or music or philosophy or writing or any of the things. You may have reached a point in this passion or even in a field of work where you have outgrown the way that you have operated. And now you may be moving into a time where you're kind of leveling up, going to another level. And it doesn't have to be, a hierarchy. It can just be that there's a change occurring, but there's likely going to be a feeling within yourself that you've learned something and now you can bring that into a new expression, or now you can take that skill set and apply it to something else. It's kind of like if you've wanted to do something in your life that you didn't previously have a skill set for, so you weren't able to really put your full effort into it or feel that what you were creating was the quality that you wanted it to be. Now you may feel that you do have a skill set. You've done something for long enough, you've explored something, you've learned something. So now you can take that skill set and actually apply it to a passion, to a goal, to an idea, and see that it takes less effort now because you have mastered something or because you have applied yourself in a certain area. That said, another part of this eclipse season that I'm seeing highlighted for you Gemini placements is also allowing yourself to release any kind of reliance or dependency on things in your life that are not healthy for you. This can be a dynamic within dating or relationships. This can also show up with anything like substances or something that you might be relying on that is not as fun as it used to be, or you don't feel as fulfilled as you used to. There may be a sense of seeking validation outside of yourself in some area of your life, and this eclipse season may show you that that is not helping you in the ways that perhaps it did in the past, or it's just not helping you at all. There may be something in your life that you've been wanting to release, a habit you've been wanting to change, and this eclipse season is likely going to give you a great opportunity to do that. And it may even be very natural or inevitable, meaning by the time that we get through this eclipse season, you may feel that that area of your life or a habit that you've been wanting to change or release is in the past. It's in the rear view. So there's a sense of leaning into that energy of transformation, and especially as it relates to anything that you might be dependent on, allowing yourself to release that can be very opportunistic for you Gemini placements this eclipse season. All right, thank you Geminis. I'm wishing you a great eclipse season. Thanks for watching. Cancer placements. This eclipse season is going to be in fellow cardinal signs, which means that it may be a bit more potent for you than other signs. Aries and Libra are your fellow cardinal signs, which means that it's going to aspect Cancer with a square to your sign. So how this may show up for you is some of you may feel that you're pushed a little bit to an edge of something. There may feel like there's more pressure in an area of your life right now, but working with this energy by leaning into that cardinal essence can be very helpful. Cardinal signs start the seasons. They are starters. They take initiative. They take action. And so Cancer, this is a time to really allow yourself to be a cardinal sign and to take action on something. If you have felt like there's been a stagnancy or a feeling of being stuck in your life, this eclipse season is going to move that energy. So if you allow that wave to just hit you, you might feel a bit knocked down by it. But if you dive into the wave and if you go with it and if you go with the change and the flow and take action, you might feel very empowered. There may be more confidence that comes by facing something or taking action in an area of your life that you have felt powerless over. That said, when we're looking at the kind of overall themes for Cancer placements, it's going to have a lot to do with home, family, and career. And that's not because it's Cancer, but it is because that is where these eclipses will be showing up in connection with Cancer. The South Node in that lunar eclipse that we have on March 25th in Libra is going to be at the bottom of the chart to Cancer, so it's going to be in your 4th house of home and family. And the North Node, which will be the solar eclipse that we have in Aries on April 8th, is at the top of your chart in your 10th house of career. So this eclipse season is showing a very obvious change in career or work for a lot of you. And it's showing that you might be putting a lot of energy or action into your career, but it's also having a ripple effect on your home and your family. Now, for some of you, you may know exactly how those two things are connected right now, but for others, you may be finding that there's a contrast, a paradox, or even a balance that's occurring between these areas of your life. For instance, there may have been a dynamic where one area of your life related to home, or family, or relationships was taking up more space in your life than work was. Now you may be noticing that there's a shift and there's a bit more emphasis on work, or it could be the opposite for some of you. A lot of this will have to do with looking at what it looks like to have the balance occur between these two things, to prioritize home and family and emotional health as well. That comes with a sense of feeling at home and feeling safe, and to also make sure that the responsibilities that you have in your life are being tended to, and that there's enjoyment in it as well, if you can leave some space for that. And Cancer placements, a lot of you may be also noticing that this eclipse season is closing out some emotional cycles in your life that you're probably ready to let go of. Because that fourth house also deals with our emotions, especially emotions that may be rooted in family dynamics or in past relationships or in very pivotal experiences that we've had in life, this south node being there is moving through that area of your life or that area of your body or yourself and clearing out any stagnant, stuck emotions. So if there's some emotional cycle in your life that's gone on in relationships or within yourself, you may be noticing that this is finally changing, that there's finally a chapter that is turning, and you're allowing it to happen in a way that may even feel that you're initiating it. And again, this is because it has a lot to do, this eclipse season has a lot to do with taking action or really owning the autonomy that you have. And sometimes the action that we have to take is to surrender, is to say, I'm not going to try and control this anymore. I'm not going to hold on to it. I'm not going to tighten my grip, but I'm going to let go. That's the action, is letting go. So yes, a lot of you Cancer placements may just be noticing that this eclipse season is really allowing a deep release of something that has been present in your life for a while. There may be a sense of finding peace about a chapter that has ended, or looking back at a time of your life, perhaps 10 years ago or within the past 10 years, that you are allowing yourself to grow out of or move on from. And this is likely not something that's happening overnight. Cancer placements, you've likely put a lot of work into healing something, into facing something, and now you might be starting to feel that you are actually moving on from an emotion or releasing something that felt like it was stuck to you, or that you were stuck to for a long time. So let it come and let it go. And thank you, Cancer, for watching. I hope you have a great eclipse season. Leo placements, welcome to eclipse season. This eclipse season is important for you all because it is connected to your fellow fire sign, which is Aries. So having this eclipse season take place in a fire sign in Aries, also in Libra, an air sign, which complements fire as well, you may really feel that there's an activation or an initiation that's happening with this eclipse season. A lot of you may be noticing that there's some change that is occurring in your life in an area of your beliefs, of the things that you're interested in, and the ideas that you have, or the information that you seek. Some of you may be going through a change in education, learning something new, inquiring into something new. And you may also be noticing that there's an effect on that with how you communicate with others, with how you present yourself, and even with how you see yourself. The overall theme that I'm seeing for Leo with this eclipse season is allowing deep-rooted beliefs to change, to be transformed, to be uprooted, and allowing fertile soil to be planted, and allowing new seeds to be planted in fertile soil in your life. So in other words, Leo placements, you may feel that there's been a sense of having thought loops going on in your life for a long time, consistent or repetitive thoughts or ideas about yourself, ideas about who you think you are or who you want to be or what you think other people think you are. There's a sense of allowing that to be released or transformed with this eclipse season. Some of you Leo placements may be noticing that you have been guided to the right information, the right mentors, the right people, the right community, the right conversations that have actually allowed a shift within your perspective to occur. A perspective change may be inevitable right now, whether you like it or not. And sometimes we do have to be kind of pressured from every angle to actually see something in a different way. If you've tried to do something that has not worked, or if you've had a belief about something that has not actually helped you much, this is a chapter of your life right now with this eclipse season and also through the end of this year where you may be noticing that a perspective change is helpful, and again, it's also inevitable. And that's why with this eclipse season, there's a great opportunity to lean into that. A self-initiated spiritual awakening. And I don't say that lightly, Leo placements, but that is really what I'm seeing with this highlighting your 9th house and your 3rd house. And so again, that 9th house is going to be activated by Aries with the total solar eclipse that we'll have on April 8th. And the lunar eclipse that we will have on March 25th in Libra is going to be in your 3rd house. So when we're thinking about that axis of energy connected to Leo, it has a lot to do with information, education, and communication, and also orientation to your environment, to the people around you, and seeing how the beliefs that you have really form how you orient toward people and toward ideas. As an example of this, let's say that you have a belief or a fear that people are working against you, or that things don't happen for you, but they happen against you. Let's say that you have a belief that your neighbors are not good people, or that you don't want to get to know your neighbors. And then you might have a perspective shift or something that happens in your life that allows your belief to change, to think, oh, maybe I should be curious about my neighbors, or maybe my neighbors are good people, or maybe I want to talk to them. That perspective shift can completely change how you show up in your environment and how you orient toward your environment. Instead of ignoring a neighbor now, you may wave or say hello. You may have a conversation that changes the dynamic of something. You may get to know someone in a new light because you've had a perspective change about being open to people, or allowing yourself to take in information that helps you to communicate with people in a different way. So Leo placements, a lot of you may just be noticing that there are subtle seeds being planted in your life that have been forming a perspective change. And with this eclipse season, it may be like the final straw that breaks the camel's back to really change your mind about something, or initiate a new belief in your life, or let go of an old belief. And those are likely going to go hand in hand. Letting go of a belief about yourself, a belief about the world, a fear or an identity, an orientation towards certain people, letting that go is likely going to allow space to come into your life to see something in a new light, to see something in a new way, and to also express yourself or communicate in a new way as well. So Leo placements, my best advice to you this eclipse season is to allow yourself to be curious, allow yourself to be open-minded, and if you find yourself going back into old thought loops or patterns of behavior, this eclipse season can be really helpful for pulling those roots up and out of the ground so that you can allow change to occur on a new foundation. But what that may first mean is that you have to look at those beliefs, look at those patterns, look at the information that you orient toward, so that you can see that that may not be something that is helping you anymore, and you can create more space to allow new information in. Okay, thank you, Leo, for watching, and have a great eclipse season. Virgo placements. So this eclipse season will be happening in your 2nd house and the 8th house to Virgo. That first eclipse that we have, the lunar eclipse in Libra on March 25th, is going to happen in your 2nd house. And that solar eclipse that we have in Aries on April 8th is going to happen in your 8th house. So this axis has to do with a lot of different things, but one of the common themes between these two houses is money. So a lot of you may be focused on your finances right now, or you may just be having to look into your relationship with money or with ownership. Now, because we're starting off this eclipse season in that 2nd house, some of you may be really facing an area of your life or a fear or something around scarcity, really looking at how you earn money, what your relationship is with earning, with owning, and with holding on to something. And that solar eclipse that we have in Aries is going to illuminate your 8th house, which means it's going to show you what that 8th house holds. And the 8th house has a lot to do with shared assets, with shared belonging, with shared ownership, and also with receiving help from others and with navigating things that are nuanced or taboo. And one of the things that does tend to be taboo is money and talking about money. So a lot of you Virgo placements may be noticing that certain conversations in your life are coming to the surface, and it may feel a bit unnerving or scary or anxious to have certain conversations, but there may be a necessity right now to talk about things, to share where you're at with something, to ask questions. And for a lot of you, this is going to show up in your more intimate relationships. And that has a lot to do with the fact that Pisces is also throwing a party over there in your 7th house with a lot of planets moving through it during this eclipse season. And again, with Venus and Mars both ruling those eclipses that we will have, and they're ruling it in Pisces. So your 7th house of relationships, of commitment, of contracts, of a sense of ownership as well, is going to really be illuminated as well through this eclipse season. And what that means for you Virgo placements is that it's likely going to impact whatever shows up for you between Aries and Libra. And this may have a lot to do with relationships for that reason. An example of what this might look like is being in an intimate relationship where money isn't talked about, or where there are conversations around money that are not productive, or that do not lead to a result of safety or of connectiveness, or of connection, or whatever it may be. So some of you Virgo placements may be noticing that there are conversations like that, whether it's around money, it could also be around sex, it can be around death, all the taboo things. So anything that feels like it's not comfortable to talk about, maybe there is a boundary or a wall being set up around certain conversations. There's a sense of opening up to those conversations during this eclipse season, especially because we will have a Mercury retrograde also going on in Aries, and that's going to be in your 8th house, in the 8th house to Virgo. So Virgo, some of you may be feeling during this eclipse season, especially at the beginning, that there are things that may be a bit repressed, or it may feel that there's stress or pressure around an area of your life, and specifically around a conversation in your life. And that repression is likely going to have a pressure release by the end of the eclipse season. Meaning, if there's something that you want to talk about with someone, share with someone, or just be more honest or direct about, this eclipse season is likely going to give you a nudge to have those conversations, to bring something up, or to face something in a new way. Working collaboratively with people right now can be very helpful. So if you are struggling to make a decision about something, or wondering how a conversation may go, really leaning into resources and leaning into healthy support systems or communities can be very helpful. So whether this is seeing some kind of a professional for something in your life, whether this be a marriage counselor, a therapist, or a financial advisor, whatever it may be, it can be very helpful to have objective opinions about something that may feel a bit personal, sensitive, or taboo. And overall, Virgo placements, by the time we get through this eclipse season, some of you may be feeling more comfortable or confident talking about certain things or facing something, especially as it relates to intimate relationships or intimacy within relationships. All right, thank you Virgo for watching, and have a great eclipse season. Libra placements, guess what? The eclipses are happening in your sign. I bet you know that by now. The South Node is in your sign, and it has been here since last year. And that first eclipse that we will have in this eclipse season on March 25th, whenever you're watching this, that is in your sign. Now, the other eclipse that we have in Aries on April 8th is going to be in your 7th house and the opposite sign to you. So this is illuminating the first house of self and the 7th house of the other, or of the relationship. So this idea of the individual versus the relationship is going to be very present for you Libra placements. A question I would offer for you Libra placements for this eclipse season is to look at where you are avoiding parts of yourself, or how or when or why you might be avoiding avoiding looking at yourself, being with yourself, or facing a part of yourself. This eclipse season is going to be very active in that 7th house for you, meaning most of the planets are going to be moving through Aries and also through Pisces. So it's pointing this direction at other people in your life. And Libra placements, you may notice that the way this is showing up is prioritizing other people over yourself, or even obsessing over other people or over a specific person, or really just putting relationships above your own sense of self. Now, for some of you, this may be a lifelong journey of looking at what it means to actually balance prioritizing yourself and your own needs and your own identity versus putting someone else above that. Finding a balance with that is key this eclipse season, but it's definitely not something that may occur overnight, and that is okay. A lot of you during this eclipse season may notice that there's going to be an opportunity to come back to yourself, especially if you are using other people or relationships or work or other circumstances to avoid being with yourself, sitting with yourself, or facing something within yourself. Now, some of you may feel like that's a bit scary right now, to face a part of yourself that you don't want to look at or that you haven't looked at. But by actually sitting with yourself, you may be pleasantly surprised at what you find or discover. There may be a sense or a feeling of safety or peace or validation or assurance that you've been looking for in someone else or in other people. And this eclipse season may pull you back to yourself to know and realize that you can find that within yourself. If you've been looking for validation from someone else, during this eclipse season, you may not get that validation that you're looking for. If you've been hoping to direct something towards someone else, it may be redirected back to you. And there can be a sense of loss or grief or mourning over a sense of distance between you and something or someone else, or having to let go of something, or just experiencing an inevitable ending, perhaps in a relationship for some of you. And this can even be a past relationship, but there may be a sense of holding on to something that has already ended. And this eclipse season is going to give you a beautiful redirection back to yourself to find that you can actually experience those emotions that you were seeking in someone else within yourself. The peace, the tranquility, the sense of belonging, the validation, the fulfillment. Guess what? It's inside of you. So if you feel that there's been a person in your life that you've been obsessing over or focusing more on, this eclipse season may show you that that has just been a distraction from looking at yourself. And again, it's not always fun to look into the mirror and notice that sometimes when we're attracting people in our life, they are just mirrors for us. But when we actually take the time to say, okay, I will look in the mirror, I'll sit with myself, what do I need to see? There may be a beautiful reflection that comes back to you that perhaps some of you were not expecting. And if you're watching this and you're feeling like you have done a lot of that, spent a lot of time with yourself, you have a sense of your identity or a sense of wholeness within yourself, this eclipse season can show you that you are now attracting people in your life that are reflecting that authenticity, that are reflecting that sense of wholeness. And this can also be a both and situation. You may be noticing that you're attracting new kinds of people into your life that reflect your own healing, your own inner validation. You're not seeking the validation in them anymore. And you may also notice that there are still some things in the friendships or in dating situations that you're attracting in others that are giving you a great opportunity to look at what still needs to be healed or addressed within yourself. And again, it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't even happen in one eclipse season. But this eclipse season, because it's in your sign, Libra, is really significant for you. So don't be afraid to have faith that this can really lead you in a path of feeling more whole within yourself, of feeling more complete within yourself, and by that, also feeling more whole and complete in your relationships as well. Thank you for watching, Libra, and I hope you have a great eclipse season. Scorpio placements. I hope a lot of you are grateful that the eclipses are out of your sign now. This is our first eclipse season in the last couple of years that is not impacting Scorpio in the same way that it was before. So a lot of you may feel that with this eclipse season. At the same time, we do have a Mars-ruled eclipse with that Aries eclipse on April 8th, and Mars also traditionally rules Scorpio. So some of you may feel that that is a pretty intense or illuminated eclipse experience for you all, but it is likely not going to be the same level of shift that may have occurred for you with the last eclipse seasons that we had in 2023. So that said, this eclipse season is going to take place in your 6th house, in your 12th house to Scorpio. The South Node lunar eclipse that we have in Libra on March 25th is in your 12th house, and the North Node solar eclipse that we have in Aries on April 8th is in your 6th house. This is an area of the chart to Scorpio that is very subtle. It's not as obvious. It deals more with the smaller details of life. And that is the real theme that I'm seeing for Scorpio placements with this eclipse season, is focusing on the mundane or the small parts of life that can add up to big things. This is where you might see that this is falls onto both sides of what that means. So the smaller things in life can add up to a lot of frustration or irritation when they're avoided. And on the other side of that, they can also add up to a lot of joy or satisfaction or elation when they are noticed. The smaller details of things are going to be really important during this eclipse season. I was thinking about the saying, death by 1,000 paper cuts is something that feels relevant for how these eclipses may show up for you Scorpio placements. And also, whatever the opposite of that saying is also true. As an example, life by 1,000 kisses from puppies. So whatever that may mean for you Scorpio placements, there's a sense of just noticing that small things add up. When you do something one time, it may not seem significant, but when you do it 10 times or 1,000,000 times, all of a sudden it's very significant. And this can have a lot to do with habits in your life, Scorpio. For instance, one day you may do something and you may do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. And eventually it becomes a part of your life. It becomes a part of your routine, a part of your habit. So if that habit is something that is helping you, it can add up to really amazing things in your life. And if that habit is something that is hurting you, you may notice the detriment of that. You may notice that it is affecting you in a more negative way. So during this eclipse season, Scorpio placements, I would invite you to really be aware of the details of life. If you're getting caught in the big picture, there may be a sense of things not being very clear right now because these eclipses are happening in a place that is not very obvious. An example of how this may show up as well is, let's say that there's a transition that you're going through right now and you're trying to really have like a big answer to it or a solution to a situation. And by looking at that bigger picture, there may be a sense of not being clear or things being unknown or feeling like something is black and white or it's not going to work out how you want it to. But if you allow yourself to kind of step back and look at the details, like just doing something that you have control over today, rather than thinking about how it's going to turn out in a year from now, this can allow you to kind of regain a composure or a focus in your life that may be very fulfilling. Focusing on the details of your day-to-day life right now may bring you more reward and enjoyment than you're expecting. An example of this as well is, let's say that there's a meal that you want to cook, and focusing on the process of cooking it and the ingredients and the whole routine that you might have to cooking it, rather than just trying to get to the end result, may bring you a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction by the time that you actually get to sit down and eat your meal. So that is kind of more of a metaphor for other things in your life, but that may also be an example of how this shows up during eclipse season, is allowing yourself to just be okay with the more mundane things, or noticing that details are actually full of magnificence within themselves, even when they seem very small or insignificant. Okay, thank you Scorpio placements for watching, and I'm wishing you a great eclipse season. Sagittarius placements. This eclipse season is happening in connection with your fellow fire sign Aries. So some of you may feel that there's a real emphasis on this eclipse season for you, especially with that solar eclipse that we have in Aries on April 8th. That said, we start this eclipse season with the March 25th lunar eclipse in Libra. That is going to be in the 11th house to Sagittarius. And then we close it out with that solar eclipse on April 8th in Aries in your 5th house. This axis of energy between the 5th house and the 11th house to Sagittarius has a lot to do with creativity, expression, and community. Some of you may be feeling that you are starting to attract people in your life, or you've been attracting people in your life who really see you, understand you, and give you the space to be yourself. And if you're listening to that and feeling like you have not attracted that in your life, this eclipse season may be the catalyst to do that. With all of the emphasis in your 5th house around that solar eclipse in Aries, there's a sense of really leaning into expression and creativity. The word catharsis is really coming to mind for you Sagittarius placements, allowing an emotional release or shift to occur by releasing something into a piece of art, into a project, into creativity, and whatever that means for you, whether it's singing, dancing, writing, organizing. I don't know what you're into, but whatever it is that allows you to feel that you can be creative and expressive can be very catalytic for you Sagittarius placements, especially through this eclipse season. That said, because there's also so much energy going on in that 5th house, and there's going to be a lot of planets being burnt out by the sun, there's also a sense of knowing your limits, knowing when you've gone over a limit, and when it's better to take a step back. There may be a lot of pleasure that is coming through your life right now. There may be a lot of seeking pleasure out as well. But there's a sense of knowing when to take a step back and to even abstain from something so that you can truly enjoy things. If you do something too many times and you get pleasure out of it, the brain eventually develops a tolerance for that thing. So if you're doing something repetitively and you're not experiencing joy in it anymore, it may mean that it's time to take a break from it or take a step back. And revisiting it at a later time may be very rewarding or even pleasurable because you have taken a break from it. On that note, you may also notice that during this eclipse season, you revisit something that you have taken a break from. Let's say that you have had a hobby that you were into years ago. This eclipse season may bring you back to that hobby, and you may remember how much you enjoy it or how much fulfillment you get out of it. That said, with a lot of energy also in Pisces right now, and with Saturn being there and then Mars and Venus ruling these eclipses, there's also an orientation toward your 4th house of home and family and also your emotions. Looking at your emotional health right now is going to be a cornerstone of this eclipse season. You may do something once and enjoy it, but doing it twice may be very unenjoyable. And that may be, again, where there's an importance on finding balance between knowing when to move forward with something and when to take a step back from something. Abstinence, tolerance, and resistance to something that might be more tempting is going to be a great tool to have in your toolkit through this eclipse season. And it doesn't mean that it has to feel so black and white, like if you do something once and it's not enjoyable, that you can never do it again. But that is true on the opposite end as well, which means that if you do something once and it's enjoyable, you don't have to do it every day. So there's a sense of just finding your limits and figuring out kind of the balance of what allows you to truly feel satisfied in something, knowing that you don't have to do it to an extreme, or knowing that you don't have to use the very last bit of something to get the full experience out of it. You might even have a dose of something really small and feel a lot from it. As an example, let's say that you stopped drinking caffeine, or you took a break from drinking coffee or something along those lines. And then let's say that you have a little bit of it. Well, that dose of caffeine may feel like a semi-truck of caffeine if you've taken a break from it. And you may notice that that orientation towards less being more is helpful to actually get the desired result from something. So instead of having a cup of coffee each day or 10 cups of coffee each day, you may have a couple cups of coffee a week or 1 cup of coffee a day, and it's going to give you a much better result than doing something in excess, even though that may be what you thought was giving you the results that you were seeking. So that's one example, but you can apply that to just about any area of your life this eclipse season, Sagittarius placements, but especially to things related to pleasure, indulgence, expression, and also to dating, relationships. And for those of you who have children, this can also be connected to children as well. So less is more, Sagittarius, and there is room to enjoy the parts of life and the pleasures of life, and also know when to step back and take a break from them as well. So have a great eclipse season, Sagittarius placements, and thanks for watching. Capricorn placements. This eclipse season is happening in an important part of your chart and just in connection to Capricorn in general, and that is because it is in Libra and Aries, which are fellow cardinal signs. There are 4 cardinal signs: Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, and Aries. So whenever we have eclipses happening in any of those signs, it's going to really affect the other ones. So what that means for you Capricorn placements is that you may feel that these eclipses are hitting you in a pretty direct way. You may feel that there's a very obvious change that's happening in your life, something that you can point to and say, that's the eclipse doing its thing. So there may be a lot of those situations that become more obvious or that are already pretty obvious in your life during this eclipse season. That said, for a lot of you, this is going to have to do with your work, with your home, and the connection between those two things. Specifically with jobs, with how you approach a job, with what you are looking for in your career. That may be an area of focus for you Capricorns. And again, not just because you're a Capricorn and that is commonly associated with Capricorn, but because you have the eclipses occurring in that 10th house. And that is where we will start this eclipse season, is with the Libra lunar eclipse on March 25th in your 10th house of career. And we will conclude this eclipse season with the solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th, which is going to be in your 4th house of home and family. For you Capricorn placements, a lot of you may be noticing that you are orienting more toward your personal life at this time, to really looking at how you feel fulfilled in your personal relationships, in your home, in the physical location of where you live, and just in the sense of feeling safe and secure in your own life. There may be a release on the other side of that, of letting go of a job or of a career or of an aspiration that you have had, and finding more fulfillment in that personal experience of your life and of your relationships. There's a sense of looking at what you have outgrown during this eclipse season, especially as it relates to your ambitions and your goals. If you have healed a part of yourself or something within yourself that has been really significant to you, you may see that it has an effect on the things that you desire. If there have been desires in your life or ambitions that you've pursued that came from a wounded place or an insecure place, and if you focused on healing a lot of that within yourself, you may notice that now your goals and ambitions are changing because you have changed, because you have healed some area of your life. And that in itself may be a lot of what you notice with this eclipse season, is that there could be a goal or an aspiration that you have aspired to or held on to for a very long time. And with this eclipse season, you may be noticing that you're letting it fall away, or that it's naturally falling away because you've outgrown it or because you've moved on from it. And it's okay to let go of those goals, even if you feel that maybe they haven't been achieved in the way that you expected them, or if a younger version of yourself thought that you might be doing X, Y, or Z at this time. This eclipse season may allow you to kind of find peace and acceptance with knowing that you no longer want to pursue those goals or to attain something that once was important to you, but that is no longer a priority. There's a sense of outgrowing something emotionally during this eclipse season for you Capricorn placements. For some of you, this may show up relationally, within relationship dynamics, within what you're looking for in a relationship. But this also just has a lot to do with your relationship with yourself, with your goals, with your ambitions, with your career, and with all of the things that come in between that. So sometimes we prioritize, so sometimes someone might, so for instance, if you've prioritized your career over everything else in your life, this may mean that the decisions that you have made have always been influenced by your career, such as where you live, who you surround yourself with, what you wear, all of the things. And if this area of your life is shifting or changing or healing, then you may notice that all of these things have a shift as well. You may want to live in a different area. You may want to have a different kind of home. You may want to have a different relationship with the people around you or with your family members. And all of that may be showing up this eclipse season. So Capricorn placements, a lot of what I'm seeing for you is just allowing yourself to accept that you may have outgrown an ambition or a chapter or a time of your life, and that it's okay to accept that, and that it's okay if that's happened, because it's likely reflecting a deeper healing or sense of peace within yourself. And if you're still kind of navigating that or trying to understand the balance of that, by the time we get through this eclipse season, you may have a better picture of what that means for you, a better vision of your future, or a more clear vision of what's actually important to you. All right, thank you, Capricorns, and I hope you have a great eclipse season. Aquarius placements, welcome to eclipse season. This eclipse season is taking place between your 9th and your 3rd house to Aquarius. We are starting the eclipse season with that 9th house activated by the lunar eclipse in Libra on March 25th, and by the April 8th solar eclipse in Aries, that will be activating your 3rd house. This axis of energy between the 3rd and the 9th has a lot to do with beliefs, with communication, and with how we integrate information that we learn. The 9th house is showing that there may be a release of a belief that you have had in your life. You may be shifting your perspective in a way that's very significant. And this may have to do with education, with perhaps outgrowing something that you have seen or believed to be true, or just taking in new information in a way that feels very inviting. A lot of you may be going through some kind of an education change, graduating from something literally or metaphorically graduating from a spiritual lesson in your life. And with the North Node pointing to that 3rd house, it's now showing you and asking you, how are you integrating this information into your daily life? For instance, you may have an idea or a philosophy about something, but if it's only in theory, it doesn't mean much if it's not showing up in your actions. And this eclipse season may show you the importance of integrating your beliefs or your ideas or something that you may preach into your daily actions. Living what you preach or living what you teach is another way to express that. With the 3rd house being so activated by Aries, but also being a bit burnt out with all the planets surrounding the solar eclipse on April 8th, some of you may also need to take a break from excess information that isn't serving your clarity or serenity at this time. You may notice that there is a need to organize certain things in your life or to get clear on something, and that by doing that, it allows you to simplify a belief that you have. In fact, the simplification of anything in your life may be very helpful and important this eclipse season, especially as it relates to things that deal with ownership and attachment. If there's anything in your life that you're feeling that you really need to have ownership or control over, or that you've had ownership or control over, this eclipse season may gently pull that out of your hands, maybe not so gently at times, but it may ask you to release something that you've had control over so that you have space to learn, or so that you have space to invite other people into an operation or a situation in your life that will expand your perspective. And this has a lot to do with the fact that Pisces will also be activated, which is the 2nd house to Aquarius. With Saturn there, which is your ruler, and also with Mars and Venus ruling these eclipse cycles, there's likely going to be an activation of that 2nd house that becomes important during this eclipse season. That 2nd house can have to do with income, with ownership, how you make money, how you spend money, and it can also have to do with a sense of how you identify with what you own. If there's a title, a job, a house, a car, anything that you have owned or have felt that you've owned or had authority over, that you have really connected to your identity or your sense of value or self or worth, This eclipse season may sever that a bit, just so you can invite a new perspective on what it means to feel worthy or what it means to identify with something. For you Aquarius placements, I have to of course mention that Pluto is in your sign, as you know by now, I'm sure. So when we're thinking about that, Pluto being here is going to have an effect on all of the cycles that are happening with the other planets. And Pluto is about transformation, change, allowing something to truly shift. And when we're thinking about eclipse seasons are also about change and shift. So there's going to be a lot of shift going on for you Aquarius placements during this eclipse season. And if you're working with that change, if you're inviting it into your life, if you're opening up your mind, opening up the book of the stories of your life, if you're allowing it to be open, this eclipse season is likely going to be pretty radical in a positive way because you're working with the change. If you have the book closed, meaning if your mind is closed, if you're closed off to ideas, if you're closed off to people around you, this eclipse season can feel a bit more resistant, and there can even be a bit of tension around that resistance. So overall, Aquarius, this eclipse season is a great time to really just be open, to be mindful of the opportunities in your life to learn something new, to even completely eradicate a belief from your life so that there's space for new ideas and beliefs to form. If you're leaning into that, you're likely going to feel a lot of powerful change and perhaps positive change as well in your life this eclipse season. All right, thank you Aquarius for watching, and have a great and transformational eclipse season. Pisces placements, welcome to eclipse season. So although this eclipse season is happening in Aries and Libra, this has a lot to do with you Pisces placements because of where the other planets are at. We start off this eclipse season with that lunar eclipse happening in your 8th house, and that is on March 25th in Libra. And then we close out the eclipse season with the solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th, which is in your 2nd house. And in between all of that, we have Mars and Venus moving through your sign, and we also have Saturn in Pisces as well. And all of those planets are going to be impacting this eclipse season. Venus in Pisces is going to rule that first eclipse on March 25th, and Mars in Pisces is going to rule that second eclipse on April 8th. So Pisces, you have a lot going on in this eclipse season, and you may really feel that. And it's important to know that because during this eclipse season, you may notice that there are things that come to the surface that maybe don't make sense in a traditional way, but that are really important to pay attention to. And what I'm really seeing for Pisces is that this is a time where you may feel that your life is a bit unmanageable, or that there's things in your life that simply feel out of your control. With Saturn being in your sign, there's a lot of associations with that, but one of the things I want to point to is that Saturn in Pisces has a lot to do with finding faith in something beyond yourself, or believing that something will work out even when you don't have the blueprint or the map of knowing how it's going to work out or when it's going to work out. There's a sense of seeing that there may be things in your life right now that are a bit messy, that need to be cleaned up a bit. And there may be a sense of feeling that you cannot manage something in your life right now. This eclipse season may really highlight that, and it may show you that something in your life needs to be cleaned up in a way. And there's a sense of really seeing that with this eclipse season, and you may notice that an area of your life that perhaps you've been getting by in really starts to become unmanageable, and it may require more structure, more discipline, or more discipline, especially if it relates to anything involving home, finances, consistency, or dependency, in a way that allows you to feel safe and secure in a plan or in an orientation towards something in your life. For instance, if you've been in between something, maybe in between a job, a home, a move, this is a time where a chapter may be shifting into something that is more stable. But in between this time, there may be a learning or a lesson that comes with it, showing you what it feels like to not be stable or to not feel that you have a sense of foundation beneath you. Some of you Pisces placements may even feel that you're going through a bit of a rock bottom right now. And if that is the case, if that is you, I want to just say that the beauty of a rock bottom is that you're at the bottom, so you can only go up from here. And some of you Pisces placements may really feel that you are hitting a bit of a rock bottom. There may be a sense of hitting a place in your life where you can't go any further, or there's a dead end, or you know that if you were to go further, it's not going to end up well. And I don't say that out of fear or to make anyone feel scared. If you feel that in your life, you will know it. So there's a sense of just acknowledging that some situations are course correcting us to make better decisions. And if you're seeing that in your life, it's important to listen to that with this eclipse season, because again, eclipse seasons just bring everything to the surface. And because Pisces is going to really be connected to these eclipses, you may be noticing that there's an emphasis or an extra emphasis on listening to those subtle or even not so subtle messages and signs of needing to become more organized with something, more disciplined with something, make a different decision in an area of your life. Really just paying attention to any kind of message in your life that is pointing you into a different direction or asking you to make different decisions. And for those of you who feel that you might be in a space that is unmanageable or you're not sure how something's going to work out, I want to just point again to saying that the alchemy within this eclipse season, especially for you Pisces placements, has a lot to do with both taking action and also knowing when to surrender something that's out of your control. So leaning into a power greater than yourself, a universal source that is not strictly within yourself, but that is connected to you and connected to everything around you. Essentially finding a power that may not come from your mind, that may not come from a plan that you have made. If you do not know what the next step is, it's a great time to surrender to something beyond yourself and within yourself, but knowing that it may not be obvious or logical or evident. Having faith in something can be very helpful for navigating this eclipse season, Pisces. And sometimes we are knocked to those rock bottoms in life, or we are pushed to an edge so that we can find that faith. So Pisces, this eclipse season may be a bit unmanageable at times. You may feel that you're being confronted with a rock bottom, with an ending, with an unknown circumstance, or even with straight up chaos. But you may also see that there's a silver lining in it that is connected to having faith in the universe, having faith in a source beyond you, and that going through any hardship in your life right now may be worth it simply because it's leading you to a greater faith. So I'm wishing you all the best, Pisces, this eclipse season, and thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you subscribing, and if you're new here, welcome. And as a reminder, again, I do have a limited availability of eclipse season readings only through eclipse season, and you can head to my website at julia-kelly.com to learn more. So thank you all for watching this video, and I am wishing you a powerful and radical and transformational eclipse season, or whatever the eclipse season brings you. May the force be with you during this eclipse season.